Hey everyone, welcome back to FT News. I'm Myra. After 9 seasons, Rick and Morty somehow still has new things to say. And honestly, that's kind of shocking. Because most animated shows completely lose themselves long before reaching this point. Either they become repetitive, or they slowly turn into lazy versions of themselves. But surprisingly, Rick and Morty Season 9 actually feels alive again. Not perfect, but alive. And that's the biggest compliment I can give this season. Now for a while, a lot of fans started feeling mixed about Rick and Morty. Even people who still enjoyed the show admitted something felt different during some of the middle seasons. The series became too obsessed with being clever. Every episode tried to out-meta itself. Every storyline wanted to prove how self-aware, chaotic, or intellectually insane the show could become. Sometimes it worked brilliantly. Other times it honestly felt exhausting. Season 9 changes that. This season finally stops trying so hard to impress people and instead focuses on telling stronger stories again. And weirdly enough, the biggest improvement is Rick himself. For years, Rick and Morty kept teasing deeper emotional damage inside Rick Sanchez without fully committing to exploring it long-term. Yes, we always knew Rick was broken. The show constantly reminded us. He's depressed, self-destructive, lonely, emotionally damaged, and basically his own worst enemy. But usually the show would quickly move on before those emotions could really sit with the audience. Season 9 doesn't run away from it anymore. This season basically becomes one giant psychological collapse for Rick. After everything involving Rick Prime and his past trauma, Season 9 feels like the emotional aftermath of all that damage. Rick spends most of the season spiraling emotionally, drinking even more heavily, acting recklessly, destroying relationships, sabotaging himself, hurting people around him, and constantly trying to escape his own mind. Now the impressive part is that the show still feels like Rick and Morty while doing all this. You still get crazy sci-fi adventures, ridiculous violence, alien worlds, multiverse insanity, absurd comedy, and completely unhinged situations. But underneath everything, there's this constant emotional darkness following Rick everywhere. And honestly, that's what makes the season feel different from recent years. For the first time in a while, the show actually feels emotionally focused again. Almost every episode somehow connects back to Rick's mental state. Sometimes directly, sometimes subtly, sometimes through complete chaos. One episode turns a simple vacation into total emotional disaster. Another becomes a martial arts parody while secretly exposing Rick's identity crisis. Another focuses on Morty slowly realizing how toxic his relationship with Rick actually is. And that's another major strength of this season. Morty finally feels emotionally important again. For a while, Morty started adapting too comfortably to Rick's insanity. Earlier seasons worked so well because Morty still reacted like a normal kid trapped beside a genius psychopath. Later seasons sometimes lost that balance because Morty became too used to the madness. Season 9 brings some of that discomfort back. There's sadness surrounding Morty this time. You can feel him slowly understanding how destructive Rick truly is. And the finale especially pushes that idea hard. Without spoiling too much, the ending basically reminds viewers that Rick and Morty's relationship is not healthy at all. It's damaging. And eventually, Morty may not survive emotionally if things continue like this forever. Now creatively, the show still feels incredibly imaginative. That's one thing Rick and Morty almost never loses. Even after all these years, the ideas behind this show are ridiculous. This season includes drug trips becoming existential nightmares, alien revolutions, kung fu insanity, ecosystem survival worlds, psychological breakdowns, and some genuinely weird sci-fi concepts that only Rick and Morty could create. The animation also still looks surprisingly cinematic for an Adult Swim show. Some sequences honestly look better than actual anime series with much bigger budgets. And at this point, the new voice actors fully feel natural now. Ian Cardoni and Harry Belden genuinely sound comfortable as Rick and Morty. The transition feeling is mostly gone. Now, despite all the praise, this season absolutely has problems too. And the biggest issue is that everything revolves around Rick. Every emotional thread, every major theme, every psychological idea, every conflict, every storyline somehow circles back to Rick's suffering. At first, that feels refreshing. But eventually, it starts hurting the rest of the cast badly. Summer barely gets meaningful focus outside her relationship with Rick. Beth and Space Beth feel massively underused too, which is disappointing because previous seasons actually built interesting emotional material around them. Jerry still gets hilarious moments because Jerry almost always works no matter what. But even he mostly exists as comic relief again. And another issue is that sometimes the emotional exploration becomes repetitive. We already know Rick hates himself. We already know he's broken. We already know he uses sarcasm, alcohol, intelligence, and chaos to avoid emotional vulnerability. Season 9 digs deeper into that psychology, but sometimes it feels like the show is explaining things fans already understood years ago. That's why certain episodes feel emotionally heavy without actually pushing Rick forward as a character. It's more exposure instead of evolution. Still, even with those flaws, this season feels far more confident than Season 8. Season 8 had good moments, but it often felt directionless until later episodes. Season 9 starts strong immediately. There's momentum from the beginning. The pacing feels sharper. The storytelling feels tighter. The episodes connect more naturally. And most importantly, the show actually feels inspired again. That matters a lot. Because some long-running shows continue existing while secretly feeling creatively exhausted. Season 9 surprisingly doesn't feel exhausted. It feels energized again. Like the writers suddenly remembered why people fell in love with Rick and Morty in the first place. The absurdity feels fresh. The emotional darkness feels sharper. The sci-fi ideas feel more creative. And the humor lands far more consistently than some recent seasons. Even the running jokes this season are genuinely funny. Something as random as the Smith family suddenly having a swimming pool somehow becomes one of the funniest recurring jokes because the show keeps escalating it into more ridiculous situations. That's classic Rick and Morty humor. Taking something stupid and pushing it until it becomes hilarious through sheer absurdity. Now, another thing I appreciated is that the season doesn't constantly depend on nostalgia. Yes, there are callbacks and references, but the show mostly focuses on new ideas instead of constantly screaming, "Remember old Rick and Morty?" That restraint helps the season feel fresher. And honestly, after 9 seasons, the fact that Rick and Morty can still surprise people creatively is pretty insane. Most animated shows become painfully repetitive by this point. Rick and Morty somehow still finds new ways to combine sci-fi, existential horror, family dysfunction, psychological collapse, multiverse chaos, and pure stupidity together. That mix still feels unique even now. Overall, Season 9 is probably the strongest Rick and Morty season in years. Not because every episode is perfect, and not because it suddenly fixes every issue the series has, but because the show finally feels emotionally focused, creatively confident, and genuinely invested in its characters again. At its best, this season reminds you why Rick and Morty became one of the biggest animated shows ever made. At its weakest, it still struggles with over-focusing on Rick while neglecting the rest of the family. But even then, the quality gap between the strong and weaker episodes is much smaller this time. And after 9 seasons, that consistency alone is impressive. Season 9 proves Rick and Morty still has plenty left in the tank. The show doesn't just feel alive again. It actually feels weird, emotional, creative, and exciting again. Thank you for watching this video, sending you lots of love, and I'll see you in the next one.